We're live. We're actually live.
I'm very impressed
Oh,
with your little tarot tats and tea thing. I thought, oh, this is very official.
I thought, oh my God, are we actually going to do it properly this time? Oh, Jackie's crystal moon says, oh yeah, you need to schedule the right time. Oh, well, yeah, I think I scheduled the right time there, Jackie. I don't know what's going on there, but we're down for 7 o'clock and we're here for 7 o'clock. So
I've brought the gremlins with me. That's the excuse.
there you go. Oh, but I'll just get the comments up here so I can actually read them there. There you go. Yep. So Jackie's here at the moment. We'll see if we get some more on. On the clock now. Do you know we've got two clocks here? Here we go. 7 p.m. Hey peeps. There we go.
That's it.
Christine and Jackie's crystal moon. And yep. Hopefully now we'll get a few more on. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just go straight into it, and anybody can just come and join us. And a lot will probably watch us on playback, I would imagine. You know, so, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. And tonight we've got Brian Cormack Carr with us. One of my favourite people to have on the channel, I have to admit. How are you, Brian?
I'm really well, thank you. Yes, Elaine and I were just talking before we went live, and we were talking about the IT gremlins that have been plaguing us. But I feel remarkably relaxed, despite the fact that at least 3 times today I've wanted to throw my computer out of the window. But
I
not now. It's
understand that.
working fine now, so everyone's going to be fine. I won't misbehave.
Oh well, Jackie was with us last week, and it was thank God Jackie messaged me, and I got it on my phone to say, Elaine, you're not actually live. Oh, holy God, what's going on? Oh, it was a bit of a nightmare, but we got through it. So we're going to talk about spreads tonight. Well, we're going to talk about tarot in general, really. But I thought we'd look at focusing on spreads because Brian, you host a number of different courses that I have to say I have taken part in a number of them, and I have benefited greatly from them. I'm not an entrepreneur. I always have problems with that word, entrepreneur as such, but I'm more of a hobbyist writer that would one day like to have something published. And I just find the steps that you go through help me, or I think in confidence as well as in you know, just well, in confidence and determination, and it helps me particularly at points of procrastination because I'm a terrible one for procrastinating. I have to be quite honest with you. But the one spread that I really did enjoy in one of the courses was the Aces Tarot spread that you had created. And I thought it would be wonderful to get it out there here live with everybody this evening so they can see how it's used and also how it can be adapted for use for themselves, for particular projects, not necessarily starting up a business. But I feel that because you've got a great business, you've got a great way with you that is very much life coaching, and I find that people will benefit from this a lot. So, do you want to take it away there, Brian, and tell us more?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'm really happy to hear what you said, Elaine, about finding the spread and the courses that we've done helpful, because one of the things I'm all about is supporting people in their creative work, whether that's as an entrepreneur, and I do a lot of work with people who are professional tarot readers or astrologers or therapists, healers, coaches, etc., etc. And I love doing that, but also people who are creatives, either professionally or just because they enjoy doing it. People who
Yes,
love making art or
yes,
crafts or writing or anything like that, because of course the process of creation is really the same in every kind of field. It's the same kind of cycle we go through, the same kind of obstacles we face. Some of them are internal, our own kind of doubts and fears and worries, and some of them are much more kind of external. They're real kind of real world obstacles. So the ACEs spread, which I'll share in a second, actually came about because I was in the process of developing a coaching model for my clients, because I wanted to help my clients go through the process that I saw was a useful process to go through. And I'd worked out broadly what the four stages were, and they kind of match up to the spread. So this is very high tech, everyone. I've got a bit of paper here with it written on. You thought I was going to share a screen, didn't you? But no, he's going to wave a bit of paper in front of the camera. So when you watch this back, if you can,
if I put you on a bigger screen there, maybe I can. It'll be easier to.
high tech.
Oops! Oh, hold on a second.
Ooh.
Do you know something? It's very. Oh no! Don't want that one either. Not that one. It's one of them. One of them will be right.
That's bigger.
There
That's
you
bigger.
go.
Yeah, and the only trouble is, even though it's bigger, you just see how bad my writing is. So these
There
are
you go.
4 positions in a spread for the ACEs spread. And I'll talk about this in a second, but just so you've got a mental model of what I'm talking about, the 4 stages in the spread, they spell out ACEs, are awareness, choice, energy, and surrender. And they relate to the 4 suits of the tarot and the 4 aces of the tarot deck: wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. And where this came from actually was I was doing some work trying to figure out what my coaching model would be. And at this point, I wasn't tying it to tarot specifically. And I was just trying to figure out what would I call each of these stages in this creative cycle that I was going to be guiding my clients through. And I did what many tarot enthusiasts do while I was thinking this through and trying to figure it out. I picked up my deck of tarot cards, and I don't know if other people do this. I suspect many of you do. I started flicking through the deck, and just almost like a kind of meditative thing. I was just thinking and flicking and thinking and flicking. And as I was doing that, I started to pull out the aces almost kind of instinctively. And of course, I laid them out in front of me, and I thought, well, there's 4 stages. And then what became apparent to me was I was looking at them and thinking, well, they kind of relate to the 4 stages that I'm thinking about. And the really interesting thing, and the bit that kind of gave me goosebumps, was I'd worked out by that point that I wanted a stage that was about awareness. So the beginning of the creative process, when we become aware of our creative impulses, or we become aware of the situation we're trying to create, or aware of the challenges we're facing. So it all comes into our awareness. Then the next one was making some choices about how we handle that. What are we going to focus on first? What direction do we want to go in? What direction do we not want to go in? What approach are we going to take? So some choices to be made. Once we've made those choices, we need to uh, put some effort and energy into those choices. So we need to energize that kind of commitment we've made to move forward. And then at the end of it, and this is the bit that I felt was a bit different to most coaching models, because coaching models tend to be very much about how you get things done. And what I wanted to kind of encode into my model was the idea that we love to think that we're in control of our lives. And of course, we have a great deal of influence over what happens. But at some point, we have to accept that whatever situation we're in the moment is the one we're in, and we just have to deal with it and make the most of it. So surrender was that last point, that kind of accepting what had come about and then going back into the cycle again. But what really excited me was, as I was doing this, I suddenly became aware that awareness, choice, energy, and surrender spelled aces. And I thought, oh, this is some kind of sign from the tarot deck. So that's how the aces model was born. And the spread is really, really simple. What I generally say to people to do is you might want to use 2 decks for this. And from one of the decks, you take your 4 tarot cards out and you lay them, your 4 aces out, and you lay them down as significators. And then what you do is you can either pull 1 card or more for each of these areas, and you contemplate, what do you need to be aware of? What's coming into your awareness now? What do you need to know more about? What do you need to focus on? And you would pull cards to kind of illuminate that awareness stage. Then for choice, again, what choice do I need to make? What qualities would my choices need to have in order to move me forward, etc., etc. You can kind of, freestyle a bit with this spread and come up with your own questions, figuring out I need to make a choice now about my way forward. What do I need to know? So you would pull cards for that. Then when it comes to energize, what can I do to put energy into this piece of work? What energy do I need to cultivate? What energy perhaps am I lacking in that I need more of, etc., etc. And then at the end for surrender, it's about what do I need to learn from what I've just gone through in that creative process. And so it's a really kind of freestyle spread. And I always say to people, don't get too hung up on getting the right number of cards pulled. You can actually take each of those categories: awareness, choice, energy, and surrender. You could even do an individual spread for each of them,
Mhm.
answering each of those questions. So that's broadly where ACEs came from.
Yeah, yeah. I have to say, when I was actually using this, I was telling Brian just before we started this, I was actually using this the other day, and I put it out on like a matrix, and unfortunately, I've left my notebook, that particular notebook, in the sitting room. I have messaged my husband, can you drop it in? If he drops it in before we're finished, I'll show you. But if he doesn't, well, so I put my aces out, and I drew the 4 cards underneath each one. Was it three or 4 cards underneath each one, Brian? I think it was 4.
Hmm.
And looking, we had the awareness up going through right through to surrender. And I was looking at them, and I thought to myself, do you know something? This actually works. It actually works. You can look at it and you think it does speak to you. But I was using that for myself on it's not so much a situation, but a project.
Hmm.
Okay, like I say, I'm a hobbyist writer. My dream is to potentially have something, uh, published one day. And I was sort of hit a bit of a wall. And what was creating this blockage? What did I need to sort of what did I need to be made aware of? What etc. etc. And I sort of went through it, and I could find a solution going along the matrix. But then I was reading it not just under the aces, but also across the way, diagonally, up and down. It all
Hmm.
sort of, it was like a foundation and a building block. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but then the gem came to me because I was stuck with this one particular character. So I put myself in that character's position and said, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to go? What do I need to move myself forward? And I drew the cards as that character.
Hmm.
And
Brilliant.
it's, I've actually managed to get another 5 chapters out just on that character, using that spread.
Excellent.
Um, and I was actually blown away. And that's when I thought, right, I am going to get you on here because this needs to go viral. In
Well,
the
I mean,
diary.
brilliant because it's deceptively simple, I think, isn't it? Because it's only 4 categories,
Yes,
and as I say, you can either pull one card for each of the categories, or you can pull several. You could do a separate spread and so on. But really,
yes,
what you're doing is you're exploring a
yes,
process that is active in creation all the time. So everything that exists, if you want to be really metaphysical about it, everything that exists comes into our awareness, or you might even say into universal awareness in a
yes,
moment by moment basis. We make choices about how we respond to what's arising in awareness. We
yes,
energize different things depending on our choices, and then we
mhm,
get what we're given as a result, and we have to
yes,
work with that. So
yeah,
it's almost like it's a process that's already there, and this is just about consciously tapping into it and exploring it. And yeah, it's really exciting to hear you say that you can read it in different ways and
yes,
from different perspectives, because
yes,
that's what I've found with it. The more I kind of contemplate the different categories and different parts of the spread, the more depth I can get from it. But I can also use it as a really quick,
yeah. You,
what do I need
you
to do what do I
yes,
need to know in order to move forward? One, two, three,
yes.
four, and that can be helpful too.
It's very, very usable for in-depth readings, for quick readings, just for something's happened, something's, how do I deal with that now? There's something here that I need. It just helps you, I think, get into your own subconscious
Yeah,
and get you to that point where you've talked yourself into a solution, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And just like we say, the images of the cards, as we know, help us to dig further into our own psyche, really,
Yeah.
and move
Yeah.
on, So it's
Yeah.
I found it really remarkable, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you I know that not everyone's into this, and I'm certainly not an expert, but there are many people who read tarot who are very into the Kabbalistic approach to tarot. And I have a friend who is very well versed in
Yes,
Kabbalistic tarot and Kabbalistic practice more generally. And he was saying to me that actually, I mean, many people watching this will go, well, duh, we know that. The
yes,
four suits of the tarot deck, of course, can relate to the four Kabbalistic worlds. So
yes,
this kind of different emanations of creation through the tree of life at different levels. Another friend who is Wiccan was saying that actually she could see a read across between that I can't remember what they call it, but that kind of mantra, which is to know, to dare, to will, and keep silent. So the four kind of
yeah,
sort of categories of magic
yeah, yeah,
almost.
yeah.
So it maps against a number of different things, and of course, four is a very powerful number in tarot anyway,
It
because
is,
we've got the four suits of the tarot deck, and for me, four is about particularly the four and the eight in a tarot
yes,
sequence. For me, are about initial kind of structure, so that kind of dimensionality when you get into the time and space dimension with four, and then eight when things become really solidified and move on to the next level. So yeah, you can play around with it, you can keep it simple, you can make it complicated. So
yes, yeah.
yeah.
It's pretty much like a lot of spreads, that you can it up to the individual reader how deep you want to go with it. Um, the, at the end of every year, I would say pull out two to three decks for one gargantuan spread.
Mm,
And luckily, I've got the space to be able to leave it out so that I can keep going back to it and pulling more from it. And I might say, right, okay, we have got 12 months ahead of us. There's 12 places here. There'll be three spaces in the center of the spread for oracle cards. And then I might say,
mm,
right, I want to use this deck, and this deck. Why do I want that? And like that, you can either make it as small or as big.
mm,
And I do feel that this 4 card spread, well, it's more than 4 cards when you add your cards to it, but using these aces are they
yeah.
pinpoint what you need, and that's what I like about it. You
Yeah,
know,
they're
it's
kind of
very,
anchors, aren't they? Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yes,
Yeah, they kind of
and
help frame the spread.
yeah, they do. And like you say, with 4 being that an important number in tarot, it to me 4 is the foundation, and it gives us a strong foundation to build on. 8 becomes that cube to build further and further.
Yeah,
And that's what I get from the 4, and that's what I get from this reading,
yeah,
this spread. No,
yeah.
I have to thank you for that, because I have found it very, very useful.
It also helps my Gemini brain because I must admit, although I do love spreads, and I've brought some other favorite spreads that I can share, but I do love spreads because they discipline me to be a bit
Yes.
more structured in my tarot reading.
Mhm.
Because if I'm left to my own devices, although when I'm teaching people tarot, I don't advise them necessarily to do this. I do encourage people to use spreads. It's a good way of learning how to read tarot. But I sometimes will do that thing of, oh, I'll just see what the cards say, and I'll pull 3 cards and see what the general atmosphere is. And that's fine sometimes, but then I'll notice sometimes I'll think, I really was looking for more guidance, and actually now I've just given myself a bit more information to be confused about rather than direction or you know.
Uh,
So
and you get, when you sort of like going sort of free, what you call freestyle reading, really, right? And I'll have the cards and I go, okay, yeah, so okay, I like that, but hold on, why is this card here? Let me just pull another 3 to just give me some. And then by the
yeah,
time I've gone through half the deck, and I'm thinking, hold on
yeah,
a second, you have to stop here, you know.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
why I personally like the structure of a spread, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, I have a spread that I use when I'm reading for others, which I have found very useful, and it's an inverted pyramid, and
Hmm.
it uses 11 cards. So you'd have your 5 going across the top, then you would have 3 underneath the 5, then 2 and 1. And the reason I went sort of 5, 3 is because I have distant past, recent past, now, and your immediate future and your distant future. But
Mm.
then the ones underneath pull the 2 pasts and the future together. So you see, it sort of goes deeper into the past, and the potential of going forward. The one in the middle is the person that I'm reading for, and everything around it is for them. Ideally, the one that's in the distant future and the one that's at the bottom, the final outcome, you want them to sort of gel to
Right.
complement each other. And to be quite honest, it's a spread that I have found works well for me, and
I love that.
it's fairly accurate because although you sort of got past, present, and future, you can also use it as a general spread and reading across, and and how what's above and below, how they affect, and which way you're pulled. So again,
Yeah.
that's something else that would be part of my tarot toolbox.
Great.
And ideal in for a deeper spread, but not too deep. When you've got someone that's come for a reading that's they're paying for an hour, so
Yeah.
want them to be able to get a good reading and questions after that, and you can see answers, you can pull from it, and then maybe the odd time you'd need a clarifier, but not very often.
I like that. I like that. And it sounds to me as though it's almost like a more focused, it's covering some of the same ground as the Celtic cross, but in a more focused way. Because I love the Celtic cross, but
I love that
that's
tone.
that
Yeah.
can be that can be a really that you can spend a long time on a Celtic cross
Yes.
reading if you're not careful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this is it. Sorry. I'm just checking here. Sorry for if I look distracted for a minute. Some of the chat is not coming up in the comments here. So I'm not able to highlight comments at the moment. It's saying having trouble connecting to the internet, but I can see it on the. So people, it's not that I'm ignoring comments. It's just that this, for some reason, is not allowing me to show comments. So I just hope you are able to know that we are seeing your comments, and thank you. I'm just looking here. There was one that I just wanted to read out there. No, it's still not coming up there for some reason. Let's have a look here. Crow's Little World. I have always only done one card too, but tonight I did a 3 card with the bottom card of the deck. Also, never have that done before. Oh, I love that. See what's
Mm,
hidden from us from the bottom of the deck.
I love
Yes, I
that. Yeah.
do like that. I
Yeah.
do like that.
I love that because it
Terry,
always feels to me like a little secret message that you're getting. you know,
it
you
really
do your
is.
reading and then you go, oh, what's the secret message from the bottom?
That's right. Oh, sorry, Tara Stash just come there. StreamYard is currently having significant issues. Yes, I'm experiencing them. That's how I am. There's one spread that I do here, Brian. Now, what I tend to do, if I'm looking for a yes/no answer, and
Mm,
it's sort of, I don't want to go too deep. I just give me a yes or a no. So is whatever going to work out the way I want it to?
mm,
I shuffle my deck. I put my deck into 3 piles, and I draw 7 from each pile. Now, the 7 that I draw, I stop if I get to an ace before I get to the 7. So on each pile, because the aces would represent a yes. Okay.
right.
So I significantly say, like, yeses are signified by an ace from each pile. So you have the 3 piles. You've got 4 ace cards somewhere in that deck. And if I get 1, then it's yes, it could potentially work out well. If I get 2, well, it's looking likely. If you get 3 aces, it's like you're on the pig's back. Hell
Mm,
yeah, this is going to work out. But then what I have a tendency to do, what do I need to look out for? So the 3 piles that have still got cards left, I just turn them over, and that bottom card is, either encouragement or something. Keep an eye out for. So
brilliant.
you get your yes or no, but then sometimes with the cards that you get that could be seen as cards you would take a yes from, you could look at them and go, well, although we haven't got a direct yes, it's not a no. What work do I have to put in to achieve that? Turn that bottoms up, and then you think, there you go, and your answer's there. You know,
Right. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah.
it's quite interesting, really.
Yeah, and it's people are very creative about how they look for answers within a tarot reading, within a tarot spread. And one of the things that it's kind of interesting for me because I generally don't. I try not to go to the tarot deck for yes no readings purely because what I've noticed is when I've done it,
Yeah,
I've sometimes found myself in the process of turning over a card, waiting to see if this is going to indicate a yes or a no. But I always notice before I do or usually I notice anyway, that I have a preference. I can find myself
Okay.
thinking, I hope this is going to be a yes, or I hope it's going to be a no. And when I feel that way, I feel a little bit like, okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe you should just roll with your preference and see what
Yeah.
comes. But I'm always fascinated by people who do
Yeah.
use the deck in that way and do it very, very creatively.
Yes, yeah. I do find that, and you see, there's sometimes now I have to be honest. I've got to be quite honest here. I don't like using my tarot to do health readings because of my own health history. The potential is there to scare the living shit out of somebody, and I would not want to be responsible for that. But for myself, I asked a question based around cancer and what have you, and this is going back some time. That would I get the all clear, because I was so long. It's taken
Mm.
10 years to get the all clear, and it was coming up with no, and I'm thinking, well, okay, look, this is, it could come back, blah blah blah, and this was going through my mind. I'm very lucky. I can compartmentalize, and I can
Mm.
say, right, okay, I asked the question, I've got to be prepared for the answer, and the answer was no, no, no. And then about 6 months ago, I thought, am I going to get the all clear? And it came up with three aces, and 6 months later I got the all clear.
Yay,
So
brilliant.
it's really,
Yeah.
no, you're not getting it right now. Nope, not going to happen. Nope, 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 nope. And then it did. You know.
And I think that's part of it, isn't it? That sometimes when we ask a question of the
Yeah,
tarot,
yeah,
particularly if we are looking for an
yeah,
answer
yeah,
such, rather than just guidance,
yeah,
it's not the right time for a
yeah,
particular answer. It's
yeah.
just things aren't aligned yet. It
Yes.
doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It just means that
No.
at the moment you're not on that particular path.
That's right. That's right. And like when I say I used it to read, to ask this question, I wasn't asking it every other week.
No,
This would
no,
have been something I would have done when I first stopped treatment. And
yeah,
then I thought, I'm going to leave that now. I don't want to know if it comes back. I just have to fight it again. And then I left it again for a couple of years.
mm,
And I'd say over the 10 years, I've done this 4 times. And on the fourth time, I got 3 yeses that I was going to get the all clear. you
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
please, that continues. But it's taken a long time, and it's finally
Mm,
here.
no, that's
So,
brilliant news, though. That's
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah. Oh, it's something that does sit in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's when I thought, right, okay, these spreads are blooming working. I just go, will my book be published, and will I become extremely wealthy?
You're looking for those. You're looking for those aces again. Get those three aces out of there. Absolutely, four aces this time.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
no,
I've got absolutely. I mean, obviously, I can't guarantee that anyone could become wealthy or
no, no,
otherwise,
no,
but
yeah, yeah,
but
yes,
I've got no doubt that you can be published. I mean, of course, nowadays it's possible to self-publish, and there's all kinds of independent publishers, and yeah, so it's exciting that you're
yeah.
heading in that
It's
direction.
I'm it's actually using this aces spread. The book, the story took a different direction to what it actually. I'm the one that's tapping away at the keyboard. Everything's flowing through my head, and it's lovely because I sort of step out of my life, and I become whichever character is focused on in the story at the time, and it's like I'm watching everything happening in my head, and my
Mm,
fingers are on fire and just typing away, going back
mm,
and sort it out and editing this, that, and the other. But it's the fact that I was there and I thought, this, how is this going to? But it's changed in format. It's changed in how the character was actually going to turn out completely, and it's turned out that the story's now, so it's going to be in 4 parts. You know,
mm.
and it's book 1, book 2, book 3, and book 4, or epilogue. All in the one book. So I'm on chapter 35 at the moment, and this
Brilliant.
person that I actually detested at the start of the book is becoming quite a nice individual.
Love it.
Oh my God, is there something wrong? I'm actually talking about these people as though they're real.
But that's what happens when you're writing, isn't it? You kind of you have that experience with the writing, or characters in the writing take on a life of their own almost. And
Yes,
actually, tarot can be. I've definitely found in creative work, tarot can be so helpful from that perspective because, as you say, you can put yourself in the position of a character, or you can put yourself in the position. In some of the work I do,
yes,
when I do use tarot to think about some of my more business-based things, what I'll sometimes do is think about, okay, from the perspective of my ideal client, what might
yes,
some of the dynamic forces be that are at play in this situation? How might they be feeling? What might they be thinking? What might they be worried about? And
yes,
how can tarot help me kind of illuminate what that might be? It's helped me do things like create some of the offers that I've put out there, some of the coaching containers I've created, some of I've used tarot a lot in my professional
yes,
career, a lot more,
mhm,
I think a lot more than people would probably realize. Even in my day job,
yes,
I'm chief executive of a charity, and I'm on the board of a couple of other organizations. And I don't use tarot to kind of determine what I'm doing, but I do
yeah,
use tarot to support my own energetic state in
yes,
those roles.
yes, yeah. And do you find that? Sorry, do you ever use any other esoteric tools to use for divinatory purposes? Is there anything other than tarot that you would use yourself?
Yes, I mean the other ones that I've explored mainly, astrology is one. So
Yes,
I'm becoming more and more interested in astrology and fascinated by it, and enjoy kind of reading about astrology and looking at it in depth, and looking at
yeah,
the some of the amazing kind of uh, contemplative materials that you can
hmm,
get just from
yeah,
from your own birth chart. You can learn a
hmm,
lot from studying your birth chart, and then of course you can go on to the more predictive side of things as well. So astrology I find interesting. The other one that I really love is the I Ching.
ah,
I just
yes,
love that. I mean, I'm not very
no,
well versed in it, but
same here,
I really
same
love
here.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I love it because it's words. I just love the poetry of it apart from anything else.
yeah. It's do you know it's actually a remarkable divinatory tool
Mm,
in the sense that it makes you. I feel that the I Ching, and I've a lovely book on it, but it's so in depth. I have to. It's one that you just dip in and dip out of because it's hefty. It's a bit like Benabel Wen's Holistic Tarot. It's
right.
that sort of level, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
but you can go. It does make you focus very much on yourself.
Mm,
It makes you. And do you know? I actually find that using the I Ching has made me focus more. In fact, again, it's a book I should have brought down here. Looking on the what the hell is it called now? Uh, Taoism. Is it that?
hmm hmm
Yeah, and looking at the I can't remember the name of the book. It's Tao something or other, and it's the writings. You know,
The Dao De Ching.
that's it. Tao Te
Yeah,
Ching. It's it, and like that, the poetry in that, the way
yeah,
it's
yeah,
written, it's beautiful,
yeah,
but it's also so peaceful. I
yeah,
find it very, very peaceful and contemplative. But that's
yeah,
how I find the I Ching as well. I sort
yeah,
of look at that and it gives you a lot to contemplate on. You know,
yeah.
you know.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, and I love the kind of when you look at the hexagrams and the way they're combined, you get little sort of phrases like thunder over a mountain, or lake floating across antelope, or whatever. I'm making. I can't remember what they're all now, but
No,
that kind of
yes,
thing. And
I
it's just,
do.
and you get
Yes,
these kind of images in your head, some of which are really abstract,
yeah,
but they
yeah,
relate to what the actual uh, teaching is for the actual thing. My first experience of the I Ching, I was just remembering this as you were speaking. Funnily enough, was when I was a little boy. I mean, really young, like I don't know,
yes,
6 or 7.
yeah,
My mum bought me as a present this book called Walt Disney's Finding Out book, and it's a little blue book, and it's one of these kind of rainy day books. So it had things in it about how to make paper airplanes, or
yeah,
how to if you put uh, sort of tape your paper around an apple, a green apple,
yeah,
with cut out shapes on it, and put it out in the sun, then it will change color, and you get little shapes, faces on the apple. All these kind of how you can
yes,
make an egg look silver by holding it over a flame and then dropping it into a glass of water and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah,
some really kind of crafty things. But in it also was a whole section on the I Ching, and it had a picture of Donald Duck's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, or whoever it
Huey,
was, the
Dewey,
little
and
duck.
Louie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they're all standing there looking up at this sort of sheet of paper with all the hexagrams on it,
yeah,
and it explained that this is a book that teaches you about
mhm,
the way that things change, and
yes,
as little me reading it, you did the thing where you tossed the coins and you worked out what the hexagrams were and the changing lines. I was just fascinated by it. It just
yes,
really excited me. And I
yeah,
remember thinking, because it felt like it was quite an educational book. It was
yes.
about learning how to do practical things. And I thought, wow, and it's got this thing that's a bit like magic in it, which was lovely.
Do you know, I got a similar feeling from, because I like the actual physical activity of tossing the coins,
Hmm.
and I think there's something quite tactile about it that just makes you think you're very much proactive in your divination, right?
Yeah,
Okay, tarot turning cards, yes, but there's something about the coins. But I
yeah.
found that I got the same sort of thing with geomancy, and
Mm,
it's again looking at the shapes and everything else, the dots and the lines, and I'm still very much a novice, even pre-novice at that, because it is quite complex. But I think that sometimes, although these things appear to be quite complex,
mm,
there's an adventure inside it in trying to solve it. Sometimes it can be frustrating, like anything that's a challenge,
mm,
but the challenge of it and the physical acts of tossing the coins, of the dots and the lines, and the shields and working out what goes where, and it's like a different language,
yeah, yeah,
and it's so interesting, and so there's so much depth to it all that it
yeah,
feels to me that it has, like you said, quite rightly said, it's almost like a magic, you know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I read somewhere, and I can't actually quote anybody because I can't remember where I read it, but apparently, the three wise men are supposed to have found their way using geomancy.
Mm.
I don't know how true that is. It could be somebody having a brain fart telling us that, but you know,
But
according to
it sounds yeah, you could see how that could be. And what I do think about that whole thing of using the coins, because of course in the I Ching as well, we can use the coins, and the other
yes,
way of doing it was through a process of dividing the yarrow stalks. So
yes,
in very traditional I Ching, you'd start off with a stack of yarrow stalks. And I think I did this once, and I found it quite complicated. But you had to kind of separate the stalks and then gather them again, and separate different bits and gather them again, and then count them. And it was quite a complicated process, and it took quite a long time. But what struck me about that was it it, it puts you almost, whether you want to be or not, into a kind of meditative state. You can't
yes,
just quickly, divide the yarrow stalks and then figure out what the hexagrams are. You've got to go through this ritualistic process. So it
mhm,
puts you into this meditative state. And it reminded me, I wish I could remember the name of the book. I did do a few years ago, I did a YouTube video on my channel about a book I was reading called, I think it was something like the Heart of Tarot or something. I can't remember. I'll
yes,
try and remember and pop it in
mhm,
the chat later. But it was a book
yes,
co-written by James Wanless, and
mhm,
Angeles Arian was involved as well. And it was various essays about tarot. And one of them was it was about a study that had been done of people who were reading tarot.
right,
And again, I can't remember all the detail of it, but it effectively was obviously you can't fully scientifically analyze a tarot reading because in order to do it you'd need to have a vast number of people doing it to
yes,
prove that there was some kind of pattern. But what they
yes,
did do was they took a group of people, or two groups of people I
mhm,
think, and some of them just did a very straightforward reading, were
mhm,
asked a question or contemplating a question and did a reading, and others went through a bit more of a meditative process where they really
mhm,
relaxed and
yes,
contemplated, then did their reading. And then a bit later on, after a bit of time had passed, both groups were asked to assess retrospectively how accurate their readings had been.
yes,
And the group that had gone through the meditative process had a statistically significant higher self-assessed perception that their
Yes.
reading had been more accurate.
Yeah.
And so the conclusion that was kind of drawn, and again, we've got to be really cautious about this, it's not a scientific study as such, but the conclusion that was kind of drawn from it was your readings will be more effective if you are in a relaxed, calm, meditative, calm brainwaves kind of state. And that fascinated me because that kind of taps into the whole notion of like synchronicity and your
Yeah.
state influencing the way things are in
Mhm.
reality, influencing the cards you pull, influencing the way the coins fall, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of thing really excites me.
Yeah. I must admit, I have to agree with you there. I know, often in tarot chat, and a number of us could get together, and some people say, well, they don't think that you don't have to have any sort of ritual, you don't have to do this. For me, when I've got somebody coming in for a reading, I I like to cleanse the area first. I like to cleanse the place so that it's new, it's fresh.
Mm, mm,
I then I about an hour before the person comes, I just start. I get my cloth out. I have candles lit. I have incense burning. But then I allow half an hour beforehand to relax. I put on my meditation music and I meditate before the people arrive.
mm,
I do call in my spirit guides. I call in my past loved ones. I call in
mm,
my ancestors, ascended masters, everything else. I just call them in because I do believe they surround me. They're here with me. And I can almost feel it, sort of the palpitating here in my heart, to be honest with you. It's almost like a feeling here. And I do believe, that goes a long way to making the readings as flow and fairly accurate.
yeah.
Um, touch wood, it's been good, and hope it continues to be good. Um, but I do find that if I haven't prepared and got myself into that mental space that I like to be, then I can not struggle with the reading, but it
Mm,
doesn't necessarily, for me as a reader, I don't feel it flows as it
mm,
could or should.
mm, yeah.
Um, so whether it's a confidence thing, whether it's something that subconsciously I think, oh well, yes, that's helped me, and I think because that's my ritual and I haven't done it, it's not, oh God,
Yeah.
it's not working as I wanted it to. But I just feel for me that routine and that go really going into my meditation and not even focusing, just asking. Sometimes it's just I sit in a quiet meditation, just asking for all these beings to be with me,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
almost like you can feel them holding your hand.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
that into it. You're just like, oh wow,
Yeah.
and when you come out of it, it's like they're still there, you know.
Mm,
And there's a lot of other little things that have happened through my readings with people that even surprises me, and I'm thinking, how the hell did that come into my head? Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's definitely something in it. It kind of it sort of taps you into a deeper source of
Yeah,
wisdom, if you like.
yeah,
In one of the courses that I did, I think you did this one, Elaine, the Tarot Coach Session Success. I
yes,
think it's in this one. We talked
yes,
about the well of wisdom. So the idea of obviously there's the coach or the tarot reader who's bringing some knowledge to the
yes,
situation. There's the cards themselves, and then there's the client. And
yes,
you know it's the combination of those that actually allow you to tap into this source of wisdom. The client needs to be able to be part of that process to
mhm,
understand what they're hearing and learning. But I definitely find if there's that process of connecting with that more meditative state, it really helps. It also I find helps me feel confident when the cards aren't necessarily playing ball. We've all had that experience
yeah,
where we're doing a reading
yes,
and we ask a question and we do all the kind of framing and so on, and then the cards, you turn over the cards and I'm sure I've certainly had this where you look at them and go, what the hell? you know, what?
Why
Yeah,
everything's going great, then suddenly the tower finds itself right in the center, and you go, oh
yeah.
God,
Or it just doesn't make sense, or you just find yourself thinking, this doesn't seem to make sense. Why is this relating to this question? And I find that if I'm not tuned into that more meditative state, I can feel my brain trying to figure it out, Whereas if I'm relaxed, my
It's
brain doesn't try and figure it out. It knows
no,
it can't figure it out, and it
it
just
just
goes with, well, this is what's presented.
I,
Let's just
I
talk about
agree
what
a
we see.
million percent. I agree a million percent. I'm just going to have a look at some of the comments here,
Hmm.
Brian, because we've got a number. Unfortunately, for some reason, StreamYard is not allowing me to put comments up, and it's really quite annoying. We
I
have a
see
lot.
runes being mentioned. Quite a lot of rune
Runes are
comments.
mentioned. David mentioned, and David was also saying here. Is Brian from Edinburgh? From would I so you can tell David where you're from there, Brian.
Very close. That's not a bad guess. I'm actually from Carnoustie, which is
Carnoustie. Do you
beside
know
Dundee
I had
on the
somebody
northeast.
and
Yeah, it's on the northeast coast of Scotland, just beside Dundee.
yes,
So very close to Edinburgh, really.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, Scottish
Oh,
people wouldn't. You know, those my friends in Scotland would go, Carnoustie's not close to Edinburgh, but it kind of is.
oh. Right, let's just have a look here. David, I use runes, Crow. I use the Anglo-Saxon Old English rune poem to derive the meanings. They're short
Mm.
couplets, but there's a lot of meanings that can be extrapolated from it. That sounds really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
That sounds
I'm not
very,
overly familiar. I do like runes, and in
I
fact,
like
I've
them. I'm
got a
not
set of
familiar.
runes somewhere that I made
Oh,
back in the days. And you must forgive me for this, for contributing to coastal erosion. But I was merely a teenager, and I didn't know any better. But when I got a rune book, I actually went to Aberdeen Beach, which is where I went to university, and I collected little
yes,
pebbles off the beach, and with a gold pen wrote the runes on the pebbles. So I have a whole set of runes. It was the
lovely.
not the I don't think it's the Old English runes. It's the more
The
uh,
Futhark runes, is it?
commercial, yeah, the
Yes,
commercialized, more Futhark
yes,
runes.
yes,
But I love that process. I've just
yes,
never quite got into runes quite so much, partly because I think you kind of have to memorize or understand the meaning of each of the runes. Some of the
yes,
symbols do relate a little bit to the
yes,
meaning, but it's a
yes.
bit more abstract, and so to me, it, I feel a bit less confident with the runes, but I
Yeah,
find them
I
fascinating.
yeah, I do have my runes. I have books on runes. I've actually got a deck that I've backed on Kickstarter on runes at the moment. So I'm looking forward to that coming through. But I do like to dabble, but I would be dabbling a lot less with runes than I would with I Ching and with my divination rods. I love my rods, that sort of thing. Anne, hello, Anne. How are you? Anne's favourite spread is a 9-card spread created by the wonderful Marilyn at Tarot Clarity. Her signature spread and alongside the triage on triage. Now you could probably pronounce that better than me. Is Anne's go-to. So that's brilliant. I like mine's an 11-card inverted pyramid. Mine is there, and I have to be honest. Let's see. Have we got anybody else?
I see David
Oh,
from Aberdeen.
David from Aberdeen.
Yeah.
There
So
you go. You're not far apart.
no, absolutely. The northern part of Scotland are being well represented tonight.
There you go. We would do our trips to Glasgow with the local football yobs. And I will say, yes, I am one of those to a degree. No, we love our football, so we head over to Glasgow. It's a great old time. Yeah. Oh, so let's have a look. We've got here. Simon's not been great. How are you feeling, Simon? I hope you're feeling much better now.
Mm.
And let me see. We've got some. Yeah, have a look. Yeah, Tara Stash saying that this StreamYard is playing up quite a bit. Um, yes, Kelly Raymond has 10 years analysis. I see a point on health. Yeah, yeah. I'd be a bit ropey about speaking of using any form of a divinatory tool to talk to people about health because it can lead you down the garden path and create unnecessary worries. If you've got it wrong.
Yeah. I'm
But
my secret is out. David now knows that I'm the guy who eroded the
you
cliffs in
eroded the
Aberdeen.
cliff.
So I think you might need to delete this video after we're done this, Elaine, because
Don't worry, I think half of us on here are with you there, going for our walks, collecting pebbles and wishing stones and bank stones.
I'll bring them back. Honest, David, I will. I've still got them.
You'll be able to identify them with little gold marks. I don't know. So now, besides cards and I have developed a liking for looking at crystals and the
Mm,
meaning of crystals and color, etc.
mm,
You know, and I've started this thing on my tarot Facebook page, is where I would put out, say, a pile of cards, and it might be a tarot card, an oracle card. I might throw a Lenormand in there and have to cheat using a book, because Lenormand is something that I cannot get my head around, and I'm trying to implement it in different things to be actively using it. And I'll put a crystal on top, and sometimes a rune, and then I will work on, tell people to pick a pile and ask, try and give them a reading from the different divinatory tools on the table. And
mm.
I find that it's amazing how these different tools can actually support. The crystal can support the tarot, and well,
Mm.
they all sort of, they like building blocks again to create a reading.
Yeah,
It's quite remarkable.
yeah.
Uh,
I think I'm right in saying that I think Mary Greer has just recently republished a book of hers that links tarot and aromatherapy, and I think there's some crystal connections in there as well.
do you know what I have? I say recently, it been I think last year sometime. I'm sure it's a reprint. Not tarot for yourself. That was somebody else. It's something along those lines.
Mm,
And I'm sure it's the reprint, Mary K. Greer's one, and she's actually added more to this book than was in
mm,
the first one. You know,
mm.
Simon's not too bad, thank you. Been to the doctor today. Exhaustion's having some blood tests. Oh gosh, yes, yeah. You probably need a little bit of iron or something. Simon. You know.
Mm.
Oh, good luck with that. I hope it all goes well. Let us know how you get
Yes,
on.
hope you
You
get
know.
positive, well, positive as in good results, Simon.
Yes, absolutely. It's horrible when you get when you're like that. It's awful.
Mm.
Oh, and tell me, when we look at spreads, and I know we've talked about the aces. There was another spread that you had, Brian, that we used in the very first course that I did with you, and it was in the shape of a candle, or it's round a candle. I
Yeah.
found that very interesting at the time. Now, I haven't actually gone back to that, and I will do, because I've got all my notes from the course. But I can remember at the time thinking, wow, it was like a lit candle. It was enlightening. It really. I would you have you got this resource?
I think it's the one. It's actually I've got a little tarot spreads book which people can get through my link tree on my Instagram, called 20 self-care tarot spreads, and I think it's the same one that's in there, called Illuminate the Shadow, and it's very simple. It's a pillar of cards, again 4 cards, 3 that are together, and then 1 that's hovering above the 3, so a bit like
That's
a
it.
candlestick
That's
and
the
a
one. Yes,
flame. And
that's
the
right.
way that I do it is the first one, the base one, is number 1, and that's something like it's about illuminating the shadows. So the first one answers the question, what aspect of my shadow is currently blocking me? So in other words, what is it I'm not seeing that's causing
Yeah.
me a problem? The next
Yes.
card answers, and again, I'll always, when I say this, I always talk actually less about cards and more about positions. So that first
Yes.
position, yes, you can pull 1 card, but you could pull more. So that
Yes.
first one is about what aspect of my shadow is blocking me. The next one up would be what's something like what's preventing me from accessing that part of myself.
Yes.
Then the third one is how can I connect with that part of me as a source of wisdom.
Yes.
And then the fourth one, which is the flame hovering above it all, is what's the gift of light that my shadow holds for me. So again,
Yes.
it's a really really simple
Yeah. Yeah.
spread, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like that one.
And I have to be honest. What I am very guilty of. I love the I well, I love tarot, full stop. But I do enjoy, as I've said all the way through, and I love different spreads. I love deep spreads, and it's only now that I'm sort of looking at the less complex spreads, and saying, rather than digging around, Elaine, let's just go for a message. Let's just go for some guidance, rather than getting too deep. And I have
Yeah.
stepped back from going exceptionally deep, because I would have cards everywhere. And now I think I go The Celtic cross would be, and my inverted pyramids are two that I love, but something like the aces, something like the candle, something where it might, like when I pull this, the aces from the paths I was telling you earlier on. I do find them more to the point. I think
Mm.
sometimes, um, as much as I like very big, deep spreads, you can almost get lost in them, and there's
Yeah.
almost like too much information.
Yeah,
Um,
and also
it
we
has
can
to
kind of
be,
lose sight of just how powerful, quite small spreads can be. So one of the things I do for myself is we tend to think about one card spread, don't we? One card, two cards, three cards. So I give them slightly fancier names to make to sort of remind me that there's
yes,
more to them. So
yes,
for two cards, I often think of it as the dynamic tension spread. And the thing about a two card spread is you can use it for fairly straightforward things like yes, no, or either or. But I always think of it as being this kind of interesting, polarity and duality and interaction of opposites. So it can also be these positions relate to things like if this happens, then this will happen, or what do I need to release? What do I need to embrace?
yes,
Or what's a strength? What's a weakness? So we any kind of pair of opposites we can think of, we
yes,
can turn it into a two-card reading and really kind of challenge ourselves to go a bit deeper than simply the
mhm,
cards are telling us, an answer. We can ask
yes,
ourselves, what are the cards asking us about these different dualities, or what are they encouraging us to think about? And then
yes,
another one I like is for the three card spread, I call this an arrowhead spread. So you've got one,
yes,
two, and three, and this is
mhm,
about forward motion. So the first one is maybe about what's your aspiration in this situation. That can either be your conscious aspiration. So what do you know you want in
yes,
terms of your highest ideal? Or it might be a bit more abstract. It might be what's my higher self telling me I should be heading
yes,
towards. And then the second one is about what's underlying that motivation. Again, it can be about pulling out our own motivations, or it can be, what's the energy that's behind this situation we're in that we might not be aware of. And then the third one is about how do we move forward. So we get that kind of duality that you can explore. And then, three in tarot, of course, when we think about the Empress card, for example, is
yes,
about growth. And that kind of, you've got these two different things coming together, and then a third thing
yes,
is born. So
yes,
so I think sometimes thinking about our spreads in a
mhm,
more sort of archetypal way can
mhm,
be a helpful way of reminding ourselves that even one, two, and three card spreads
yes.
are really powerful.
Yes, very much so, very much so. And I've got to be honest with you, and I'm not saying this here just to plamass you, but it's through doing courses that that you have hosted, where you have had straightforward two, three, four card spreads, and they have been powerful spreads. You know, every bit, if not more powerful than gargantuan spreads where you're digging around. Now, I that's not to say I don't still do the odd spread, I've
Mm.
large spread, but I've stepped back and become more focused on what it is I'm looking for, as opposed to right, what can we do today, and have everything out. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
I must admit, when I've got a lot of time on my hands, I do tend to. That's when I go right. Hold on, today's going to be a card playing day. And I might take scenarios. I might say, right, okay, what's going on here, and it will have all. It'd be like the AA roadmap on my dining room table.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Yeah,
we're going to
one of our friends. It's not really a spread. It's a process, and he calls it the 78 card story process or story spread. And what he does is he starts off with whatever his question is or his concern is, and he says, "What I do, Brian, is I literally hold that question in my head, and then I shuffle the cards, turn over the
yes,
first one, and I just contemplate what that card is encouraging me to think about." And he can spend a second on it, or he could spend an hour. Then he turns over another one, and then another, and he goes through the whole deck and allows it to be almost like this kind of stream of consciousness contemplation. And he says sometimes the way he does it is just literally like that, one after the other, after the other, and just contemplating and noting
yes,
down any insights. But what he sometimes does is he actually lays them out as he does that in a
yes,
grand tableau, and
Yes.
then he reads it again. So he does the reading one by one as he's going through the
Yeah.
process, and then he has usually then goes and has a cup of tea or a lie down,
Yeah.
and then he
Yeah.
comes back and looks at this grand tableau and he reads it almost like a kind of Lenormand grand tableau. So he
Yes.
looks for
Yeah.
what are the connections between the
Yeah.
cards. Is he noticing any patterns? And
Yeah.
you could write a book from that spread. That's
Oh,
that's
do you
that's
know?
deep.
Yeah, that's very deep. And do you know something? There's actually a book coming out. I just see if I can find the title of it. I've actually pre-ordered it, and it is called the Tarot Grand Tableau, and it's literally using the 78 cards because I think the thought behind that as well is when you shuffle the order that those cards come out are how you that whole lot. What is that gargantuan message that you need to hear?
Yeah,
I think it's something that I would use at a time, not necessarily. I haven't. I myself have not used a spread with the 78 cards, but I would contemplate using something like that when I've major decisions to make. What could
yeah,
go right? What could go wrong?
yeah,
Oh God, let's just put the cards away because I have just frightened myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
noticed David in the chat says that he when he's shuffling, it might be 78 card pickup. I've definitely had that experience
oh
where,
yes,
in fact, I once was working with a client and I was I'm not brilliant at shuffling, so I can shuffle overhand. I can't riffle shuffle very competently,
yeah,
but I tried on this one occasion to riffle shuffle and I sprayed the cards halfway
yeah.
across the room. And then, of course, I went to start picking them up, and my client said, "Oh, why are you picking them up?" And I said, "Well, because they're all the other side of the room." And he said, "They might have landed in a really meaningful way." And so we virtually had to do the reading from the cards that were on the floor because he was convinced that this was going
God.
to
Oh my
obscure
God.
some deep, meaningful message that the cards had from. I said, "This is the only message here is I'm crap at shuffling. I assure you."
I must admit, do you know I find riffle shuffling extremely therapeutic.
I
I
love
know.
watching it when people do it.
Oh,
I love
love
it.
it. Yeah, I know that there are tarot readers out there that would say it's absolute sacrilege to riffle shuffle a deck because it's almost like riffle shuffling is something you'd find in a casino. And, I just go, oh no, I just love it. I started to riffle shuffle when I was about 10. My mother taught me how to riffle shuffle. And that's we used to sit down and play rummy, as a family. And
Yeah.
my mum and dad used to sit there and they'd be, riffle shuffling and arching the cards, bridging them, and they'd all. I have to learn. I sat for hours. My mum taught me how to do that, and hence I now riffle shuffle all my tarot decks. But I also find, especially this poor deck, and I know Simon now. Simon, it's this deck again. It's my RWS 2.0. It is looking so battered and tatty at this stage, but I love it so much. It's you can see it's actually very grubby, But whenever I'm traveling or if I'm going anywhere, this comes with me. And sometimes I'll be sitting there, I'll get my cards out, I'll sit at a table there, and I'll just riffle shuffle during my journey and to pull my readings whilst I'm traveling. And I just think, yes, I just find it very therapeutic.
It is therapeutic. Yeah, it's just and even the sound of it, I think
Yes, yeah,
sounds
with the
great.
sound of cards falling, absolutely. I'm just looking at the time. We've been on for an hour already. That time has
Wow,
absolutely flown.
it has,
Um,
it has.
I tell you, what I am going to do, I'm going to pick the brains of Simon or Jared and Richie, because they're right. This StreamYard is causing a few issues, so I might pick their brains. So give you a heads up. I'll be in touch with you. What do you use? How do you use it? Because StreamYard has been not playing games tonight, so I think it's
Hmm.
time to look at another platform, maybe. You
Hmm.
know. Brian, is there anything you want to leave the people with tonight that have been so kind to join us? Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
thought I would
that's
leave.
right.
Yeah, it's been lovely to see everyone, and thank you all for being here and for your questions and comments. And I thought I would leave you with you mentioned confidence at the beginning of this, Elaine, and that feeling of sometimes a spread can give us confidence or a reading can give us confidence.
Yes,
So
yes,
in my 20 self-care tarot spreads book, there is actually a reading in there which is called something like creating confidence, and it's a 5 card reading, and it's very simple. You just lay out the cards, something like this. It doesn't really matter. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and
yes,
then it's really for when you're at a point in your, maybe it's in your work or your creative life or your business or any kind of endeavor where you're
Yes.
beginning to lack confidence. So the first card is about, or the first position is about what's special about my offering. So it's about getting back in touch with what is it that's, because whatever offering you have, whether it's a book you're writing or a business you're building or a cake you're making for somebody you care about,
Yes.
that is going to be completely unique to you. There's going to be no other cake, business, book, whatever like that. So what's special about my offering? Getting back in touch with that.
Yes.
The second position is answering the question, how can I bring more of that forward in my work?
Mhm.
So how can I be empowered to bring that forward? How can I be encouraged to bring that forward? The third one is about what self concept do I need to let go of? So I might have an outdated idea about whether I can or can't do a certain thing,
Yes.
whether I'm good enough, it's a blah, 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 blah. What do
Mhm.
I need to let go of? The fourth position is about what self concept do I now need to embrace in order to
Mhm.
let this creative flow happen? So
Yes.
how can I bring into existence this thing that wants to be born from me? What do I
Yes.
need to embrace to do that? And then the fifth position is about um, it's a really simple one actually, and it's the thing we often forget about. How can I practice more self-kindness toward myself? And that's it. That's the confidence spread. And again, you pull one card or more cards if you
Yes.
wish, but that's the process.
Do you know you've actually hit a nail on the head there, Brian, because that's something we should all be more aware of is being kinder to ourselves. Um, I know there are times I will be laughing and joking. Someone actually said to me, "Why do you always put yourself down?" And I didn't realise that I was. I just thought
Hmm.
it was a laugh, and we're doing this and we're chatting about that. But it's when you look, you think it's negative self-talk, and we
Yeah,
do need all of us need to be kinder to
yeah.
ourselves. And unless we can be kind to us, we're not going to be able to be truly kind to other people. You know,
Hmm.
it all
Hmm.
starts here, doesn't it? And I think the confidence spread is something that is something I'm definitely going to look into. Now, Brian, I just noticed David was asking there, do you have a website? So would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you, whether your courses, etc., etc.?
Yeah, certainly. I do have a website, which is my two last names.com, cormackcarr.com. It's hopelessly out of date, so I need to update it. My tarot offerings are on my link tree, so I'll pop that into the chat actually, if that will go in. I don't know if that's showing up, but my link tree is where my tarot offerings are. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm usually there blethering about something or other.
Do you still do tarot to the nines, Brian?
Yes, and in fact, that is on my YouTube channel. So if you go to my YouTube channel, there is the Tarot to the Nines series, which was a series of videos I did. My gosh, it must be about 4 or 5 years ago now. Where,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
where well, many of the people I'm connected with on YouTube came to me through that. Where I did it just for fun. I started off looking at each of the numbers 0 to 9, and then I looked at the constellation of cards that sit under each of those numbers. So obviously the pip card, but also the major arcana, and then the cards that reduce to that number. And we went into all
Yes.
kinds of interesting
Yes.
territory with that series, stuff that I thought, well, I never thought I'd be talking about sacred geometry on YouTube, but
Yes.
here I am. I'm doing it.
And you're doing well. You're doing well, Brian. It's great. It's lovely because
Mm,
I know I have done, like I say, a number of your courses, but I always find that they're instructive. But it's like when you're in that group, it's like a little safe haven. You know,
mm.
nobody can come in and peck your head, so to speak. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think it's well, I'm pleased to hear that because I want the spaces I kind of curate to be safe for people. And of course, when
Yes.
you're studying tarot, I mean, especially when you're new to it, it can be quite daunting. And then even if you're very experienced, it can lead you into some really deep places. So I think we've got to be careful with. I don't mean careful in the sense of it's dangerous or anything. I just mean we need to understand that it can really uncover some deep stuff within us.
And that's where it comes into our shadow work and things like that, and
Hmm.
and really a lot of self study. I
Hmm.
do think I've been retired now for I've been retired for 7 years and out of work for the 10 because of all the treatment for the first 3 years. But in this past 10 years, I have really delved exceptionally deeply into tarot. I think for me, I see it's made me a better person. It's
Hmm.
made me somebody that's it's helped me deal with some of the toughest times of my life. It's pulled me through it, but
Hmm.
it's also made me. It's given me a level of strength and bravery that I didn't know I had because I had to work on me.
Hmm.
And it's it's not saying like, okay, tarot is the magic key, it's going to solve everything. It's just it's made me focus in a healthy way
Yeah.
on becoming a better person, a healthier person. Sam, stop. you
Sam
know
agrees.
Sam agrees. Sam's good. No, she gives out to us too much, don't listen to her. But no, that's what I have found. I've been involved in tarot since I was 18, and I'm 58 now. Well,
Hmm.
59 this year. Gosh, these years are flying by far too quickly. As I said to you earlier on, I deleted all this by accident. I think senility is definitely creeping in. Oh God,
Oh. We got there in the end, though.
we
It all
did
works.
indeed. We did indeed. So I'm going to say thank you, Brian, so much for being here once again. I've thoroughly enjoyed the evening with you, and we'll definitely do it again. And we'll pick
Yes,
another
that'll be
aspect
lovely.
of tarot and do something. It's just like it's a maze. It's a maze, a rabbit hole of
Hmm.
info.
Hmm.
Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that's moderated on the channel tonight, and that would be Jackie's Crystal Moon and where I'm going up here now, the Hermit's Cave, Simon at the Hermit's Cave, and I don't was Jackie the other Jackie here tonight? I don't think she was. I think she's not well either. But thank you very very much indeed. Thank you everyone that's joined us, and we will be back soon. I'll be back with another guest in the near future, and I'm really looking forward to having Brian back again soon.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Lovely to see you all.
Lovely to see you all. Take care, everybody. And Brian, if you just stay on a sec, we'll just end the live stream there. Thanks once again. Bye bye now. There we go. I think an error occurred. Wait a moment. We're still live. Oh, look. StreamYard's playing with my head. It won't end the live stream.
We'll have to go
Oh,
straight
my
into our
God.
next topic.
We'll go, yeah, wait. Brian's back. Do you know, I think we're just going to have to sort of close down somehow because
That
it's
is all
not
right. We
shutting
can do
down.
that.
Oh, I tell you, oh, this is unbelievable. Simon, I hope this laugh has made you feel better. I really do, because I tell you what, I'm not going to be using StreamYard again.
I'm desperately trying to think if I've got any other spreads, but I haven't. So we're definitely out of the spreads, Elaine.
We're out of spreads. Sam's actually got his foot caught on my jumper. You lad. Oh, honestly, do you know it's not shutting down? An error occurred. Wait a moment, then try again. Holy God.
It obviously loves us so much, it's not letting us out.
I don't know. I tell you what, we've impressed the software. Sam, stop it a minute, honey. You just wait for a minute. Good boy. Oh, hold on. This is unreal, isn't it? We're still here. Pull the plug. I'm going to have to pull the plug. I think so. Brian, I'll see you again. Bye
Definitely.
bye.
Take care
Thank
of
you
yourself.
very much.
Love you.
Love you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.